The enduring testimony of the Apostle Paul is that God can change anyone. Once a fierce enemy of God, Jesus powerfully called him to repent and offered him forgiveness and a new life. Paul believed Jesus and eagerly obeyed. Now he wrote to countless readers, urging them to place their full confidence in Jesus for deliverance, and to remind them that his eternal treasure is worth more than anything here on earth. Paul reminded them of the faith of Abraham and how he sought after the promises of God as the ultimate treasure, because Abraham believed God. God promised that from Abraham he would create a great nation, and that through his family the Messiah would come. "Leave everything behind," God told him, "and move toward a land I will show you." So Abraham left the only home he knew for a land he knew nothing about. Even with the challenges of famine, family conflict, and the possibility of vicious enemies, he remained faithful to God. Although he was an old man, Abraham set off on an amazing adventure in search of the greatest treasure. Nothing else mattered to him because he believed God. God promised Abraham that his descendants would be so many they could not be counted. God said to Abraham, "Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have." Abraham knew he could trust God, because when God makes a promise, he never breaks it. Abraham never gave up on the hopeful future that God promised. God was pleased with Abraham and not ashamed to be known far and wide as the God of Abraham, not because Abraham was perfect, but because Abraham faithfully believed in the one who is perfect. It was not because of what Abraham did or did not do, but because he had faith in the one who declared him sinless in the sight of God. Although Abraham was very old and his wife Sarah was unable to bear children, Abraham believed when God said he would bear a son. He knew with full assurance that God would stand by his promise, because he knew nothing was impossible with God. Abraham believed with his last breath that God would keep all of his promises. God promised to make out of him a great nation from descendants as numerous as the stars, and he did. God promised him an heir, and he gave him a son. God promised Abraham the land of Canaan, and years later God delivered the land to Israel. God promised that through his descendants the whole world would be blessed. And many years later God sent his son, Jesus, to be born in the very line of Abraham, to be the perfect sacrifice for the sins of the whole world. Yes, the Messiah came according to the promises of God. He died and rose again, victorious over sin and death. All those who declare Jesus as Lord and believe in their heart that God raised him from the dead will be saved. Abraham caught a glimpse of God's plan and believed. Like Abraham, we can also put our trust in the promises of God and become part of God's family because of the cross and by faith.